What's up,
Satvik?
Satvik?
What up?
How's it going?
Just but before we dive in, I think like there's this theme that continues to come up in crypto that I very much recognize in myself, having gone through like the early Web 2 era, is just how hard it is to grok the scale that can come in these new paradigm shifts and new platform shifts. And I think you see that on the timeline quite a bit of people trying to grapple with like this inability to have some vision into the future around what scale might look like here. And I don't know, maybe that's relevant to you, Satvik, here, and we can dive in because I think there's some scale coming to your product right now, baby. Let's go.
I mean, it's definitely relevant here. So Satvik, you're the founder of Offline Protocol, the infrastructure layer that enables an ecosystem of products and applications to operate without internet or phone service. So I imagine this idea of like applications operating without internet or phone service is a completely foreign concept to essentially everyone that's listening here. So wondering if you could fill us in on both like what that even means and why it matters.
Sure. Well, I think you're spot on because every VC I've spoken to is like, oh, Starlink is just going to make your company redundant. And yet, over 2 billion people in the world still don't have internet access. And we could also think about the fringe use cases, right? We've all been at like a concert or in the subway or a place where we keep refreshing airplane mode trying to get a text through. And I just think of that at scale and think about places where they're facing natural disasters, where they're facing geopolitical conflict, or just, all these incidents where you just have no connectivity. What do you do in those instances? For me personally, deciding to do offline protocol, really, I can attribute to 3 catalysts. The first one was growing up in India. I've seen government censorship and overreach. India actually leads the rankings in number of government-imposed internet blackouts. We had 85 the last year. Second place after India is Iran at 30. And so the gap is huge. And so that's definitely something that's been like top of my mind. Second is when the war in Ukraine started in 22. I don't know if you know, but like a couple of friends and I got together, did a fundraiser, raised 2 million for charities there through NFTs. At the time, all the big payment processors had turned off their payment rails in the region, so people couldn't use their bank accounts. ATMs had run out of cash, and we've said crypto censorship resistant for a long time, but there was no internet, so people couldn't even use crypto for P2P transfers. And so I just started directionally thinking about, what else exists in this alternative networking space. And then the final kind of nail in the coffin for that was later that year in 22 when the women's political protest started in Iran. People were being actively targeted if they used things like Starlink or just ISPs. There was a lot of censorship. And again, mesh networks and this alternative communication really was the way that people were able to organize and share information. So I think crypto is the industry that's perfectly primed to incentivize more of this populating of mesh networks and more of these, we call it user-powered networks. And hopefully like that's what we're working towards in the long run.
Can you share a little more about how the tech actually works and what's actually unlocked you? Like I imagine I'm never going to be, messaging my friend in Europe or like sending my money to my friend in Europe, but it is really effective at kind of the more local level. So yeah, curious how the tech works and really
sure.
what's unlocked.
Yeah. So fundamentally for mesh networks, there's definitely a few different approaches that people can take. For us, we use a mix of BLE, which is Bluetooth Low Energy, and Bluetooth Classic. So we're cross-compatible across iOS and Android. We're also about to integrate Wi-Fi Direct. So typically these 3 are like the standard, or if you want to do a hardware-based approach, then you can use radio signals to create radio-based mesh networks. They typically have longer and stronger ranges, but again, you need like specialized hardware to make it work. So we wanted to take the software first approach. So we're hyper local by default. In the future, we might add things like internet uplinks, wherein you can essentially borrow someone's internet in your local mesh network. So stuff like this could theoretically make you go global with your messages, payments, and things. So that's on the mesh side. On the payment side, we've actually unlocked a brand new primitive for offline payments that doesn't actually, I think, exist anywhere else out there today. Essentially, when you think about offline payments, you think about models like M-Pesa in Kenya or Paytm in India that use SMS to do real-time settlement still. So they say they're offline payments, but they still require your phone connectivity. We've devised a way where we can essentially collateralize on-chain assets and allow you to do fully offline payments without any SMS, without any internet. And hopefully, that's something we'll roll out without revealing too much soon to our first group of users, which I'm stoked about.
So I'm curious, is your vision that most apps will just have like an offline mode, or do you think specific apps are going to be built specifically for these, privacy, censorship, resistance use cases?
Yeah, great question. For me, like offline protocols' vision is to become the de facto offline tech company. And so we're almost like proving the model right now through our own app layer. So we've built out our mesh infra. We're building out our own apps for these basic use cases of messaging, payments, information sharing to just show what's possible. We're building out our native social graph through offline ID. And then we're also in the process of putting together our SDKs for both offline ID and offline protocol. So other companies' products can build their own offline tech. And I think long term, that's where we're going to be moving towards more and more. Is while we continue to build this consumer side, we also see that aspect where maybe neobanks can integrate our offline payments primitives into their existing offerings. Maybe social apps can integrate our social layer into their offerings. So we'll start to see more of that, because the goal with this ecosystem is to make it interoperable, and more nodes pop up, more we have that resilient mesh network available globally.
Got it. So you guys have seen some good traction recently. Obviously, I think a tweet from Jack goes a long way. So your first app that you're building is it Fernway? Is that how you say it?
Fernway, yeah, it's a German word that means homesickness for a home you've never been to. It's my favorite word of all
Okay,
time.
got it. Nice.
Good old Germans and their words.
So it's an offline messaging product, and yeah, it seems like you're getting a bunch of traction on it recently. So yeah, can you fill us in on what's going on there, kind of what numbers you look like, and how people are using it so far?
Sure. Yeah, it was like hilarious because after demo day in May, spoke to a bunch of VCs. We had about like 25,000 top of funnel users then, and this was we haven't done like any paid push yet, no KOLs, no like whatever. It's all organic. And I was told that you've peaked essentially, and this is like never gonna go beyond. And I was saying, we want to do 100K users this year, and everyone thought it was really ambitious. As of right now, just before this call, we crossed 240,000 users top of funnel.
You just double in a couple days?
Yeah. So yeah, I posted 120 like 2 days ago. We're now at 240, growing like by 1,000 users or so every hour. And so that's like continuing. My goal for this year is now shifted from 100K to 500K to 1 million, hopefully. Very much committed on just like growing organically. I also think the beauty of mesh networks is you can't use them by yourself. And so every user that we onboard by default at least brings on one more person. Average, I would say we get like 3 to 4 from each one user. We get like N+4 because they want to onboard their significant other or their friends or their family so they can actually use the product. And that creates its own referral network flywheel.
And are there specific regions you're seeing this adoption happen? Like, is it these kind of emerging, countries that have the need for censorship resistant and redundancy and all this stuff, or are you seeing pickup in the West as well?
It's actually been pretty global. The like recent example I've been sharing is the same week we had users in Coachella, and that same week we had users at a Syrian refugee camp in Jordan using our messaging app. So it's like you kind of see that this is not limited by geography in terms of the use case, right? It's people use it for what they need to use it for. But we've been very careful to stay unopinionated by design and not come across as like a fun Coachella app and not come across as a really serious refugee camp app. We want to be able to serve whatever your need might be. And we're seeing that traction, pick up globally. Right now, we're getting live traffic from both like Tokyo, where the floods just took place, and we're starting to onboard users ahead of Berlin Pride Parade, where they'll have 1 million people attending. So it is very like geographically relevant.
So I don't think we've mentioned, but we are through C Club Ventures investors in offline protocol here, and I think even as that, I am blown away by sort of the traction and the growth they've had here. But I think the messaging and sort of this networking, as you said, is just such a powerful, has potential growth just really built in due to the utility really being driven by bringing your friends along with it. And so, but the challenge in messaging is maybe less about how do you go get people to use it the first time. It's how do you get it to be sort of an ingrained habit that is used all the time. And it's not my fifth messaging app, but it's my first or second one. So can you talk a little bit about how you're thinking about what you need to go build or how you need to approach retention?
Sure. So I mean, that's a great question. We get this like question a lot about, sure, I might use it during this like emergency or, at Coachella once a year, but why do I stick to it? And the short answer for that is we don't want the Coachella user to stick to it and use it every day. We have a separate demographic that will. So we essentially split our demographics into two. One we call our high virality, high growth user. This is the more Western, more privileged audience. They have their like Verizon fiber, they have their Starlink, but every now and then they'll use something like us because they need it. For them, we almost create a proactive demand by going to college campuses, in their neighborhoods and places prone to natural disasters. We go through local organizations and campus communities and social media, TikTok, and all of that. We get in front of them. They use us for this like one moment, and then they might delete us. That's fine. Our second demographic is what we describe to be our power users, and these are people in these more developing economies and places that are typically disconnected. Think of everything from refugee camps, different NGOs across the world, rural neighborhoods, volunteer networks, and these are people that actually have smartphones, but they don't have access to reliable internet or telecom solutions. So for them, we serve a daily need. And just when we aggregate, the user base across both these demographics, we have the potential to literally service over 1 billion people. And that's what we're in pursuit of. I think it's very naive to try to have retention across the board and, model your own data because one group might not be retentive, but the other group might be. So we're highly data driven as a company, which again is rare in crypto, but every single aspect of our user, we're like marking against several categories. Everything is like dashboards, analytics, because I think it is really important to be able to do this organic growth to just know what actually works for the people you're targeting.
Yeah, interesting. So what you've sort of expanded your vision for what you or like the targets for this year. I'm curious how you're thinking, like what's the mindset shift or the strategic shift that you need to make where, 2 weeks ago, you're like, wow, we hit 100,000 users this year, success, to now going after an order of magnitude larger with 1 million.
Sure. I think like the biggest learning I would say from just like last year to this year is no one's coming to save me, or no one's coming to save offline protocol in general, right? Like if you look at even the pitch decks that I was making start of last year when I announced offline protocol, like I think every narrative that came across crypto is featured in that pitch deck. We had like L2 mentioned on it, we had a RAS mentioned on it, we had like token. We've like done every single narrative because my hope was someone will come to save us and then we'll figure out what's going to be the path to building this company. At some point around like September or so last year, I just said like, screw it, we're going to do this ourselves because the mission is more important than any of the validation that we will get from the social layer of crypto. And that's when things started to click. We got Alliance, we got you guys, we did our pre-seed, and then this like whole stress was just gone. We announced our fundraise like 4 months after it was done because at that point I didn't care. I didn't want the like social validation. I just wanted to build. And so now, even though like we've hit our year end goal already 6 months early, the goal is still the same, to just like continue to build, continue to bring this out. So today I spent all day just reviewing all our analytics and seeing where we're driving more growth, what things we need to focus on, what campaigns we need to start next. And so now it's like we're going to 500K next, so we just continue to scale up and up because ultimately my goal is let's get every single device in the world, 7 billion in circulation right now, to have one of our apps on it.
Little goals, just little baby goals. I love it.
I mean, you're going to be at 500K in 3 days at this rate, so we gotta raise our targets.
Our privy bill is going to be insane, but I'm looking forward to it.
Oh boy, yes, we've seen those before. All right, Satvik, let's leave it there, man. Just super impressed with the hustle and focus, and ultimate, I think, very ideological yet pragmatic vision that you're approaching here. So let's get a couple more users on this app. Where can people go and sign up for offline protocol?
Go to fernway.chat. And before I hop off and let Winnie jump on, I also just want to like say a big thank you to you guys from like meeting in Singapore last year to you guys getting on the cap table. Like everyone's been giving me props for having conviction and like believing in it when it didn't make sense. But a lot of props also to you guys for being able to kind of, take that risk and join the journey. So hopefully we all continue to grow together. So thanks so much again for having me.
We have the easiest job, man. You get to go and invest your heartbeats in it. So we're taking no credit for that. Excited to see you at 1 million, man.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Peace, dude.